Richards trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease. Score!
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derrik.
How you gonna get it, Bobby?
John, Matt Casey,
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
and Hoagie.
What's not to love?
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Street Bullies, the first one in it feels like forever. But we are back. I'm Derrik.
And I'm John. What's going on, everybody?
Oh, timing's good.
Timing's great. Timing is great. That was Matt Casey. How's it going, Matt?
Hello. How's everyone doing?
And Hoagie.
Gentlemen, happy Monday.
They were waiting on that too. I just want to let you know. They were waiting on whatever you said to just laugh.
Well, it took them like
Every
5
time.
seconds.
Dude, my
Let me
thing is
see
just
here.
so laggy. I swear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are called brain cells, buddy.
I have none.
Hey, John, know what I realized?
What?
It's like we're getting pretty close to your favorite day of the year, which is July 5th.
Oh, yeah. I know. It's the 5th of July, for Christ's sake.
So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, like
Rewind.
a year ago, John was basically broadcasting from like a dumpster in an alley somewhere in Long Island, and he was homeless. His kids were sleeping on air mattresses in a tent or something, but he was recording off of his phone. And 5th of July, we're recording, and there's just fireworks going, and John's losing his mind, slamming White Claws.
What?
It
Neighbor
sounded
shot
like
off a mortar.
Beirut. It was like, boom.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh, it's going to
Can't
be
wait.
fantastic.
We
It is
need
going
to
to
have
be
an
fantastic.
all-outdoor episode right after 4th of July.
All outdoor episode. That's not a bad idea.
I like it.
That is not a bad idea at all. Well, speaking of fireworks, the Flyers lit one off here this past week with the hiring of John Tortorella. Matt Casey and I hopped on a couple nights ago to discuss, but because Hoagie and because John weren't with us, and because John's gonna piss and moan like a little girl if he doesn't get to share his opinion, we're gonna go over to these guys real quick so that they can chime in on their thoughts. So, John, we'll start with you.
At least you know me.
Of course, we've been doing this how long? Come on now.
Wait,
Yeah,
they're
right.
going to do this show even though we can't do it? What's the matter with
Right.
that? I need to talk.
They didn't even say anything to us. They were just like, I'm
Right.
doing it.
It was in a group chat.
It definitely wasn't.
Did we not agree
No,
that
it
we were
wasn't-
going to do a show? Yes or no?
No, there was definitely a side chat of you two saying, let's do
Yeah,
it.
you definitely texted each
There
other.
was a unanimous decision when we decided that if the Flyers hired a coach, we were going to be essentially on call. And
Right.
you then tell us, I can't do it. That train keeps rolling, baby.
And
With or
Hoagie
without
had a
you.
9 o'clock
either
game.
get on board
I don't know.
or get the F off.
I can't do it. I had freaking COVID, asshole.
I had COVID and I still did an episode.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Anyway, you
Share
want to
your
hear my
opinions.
my opinion? I love it. I'm pumped. I mean, I
Same
honestly
thing I said
think
when John said he couldn't do the episode a couple nights ago.
I think that it would have been really hard for the Flyers to hire somebody with this coaching pool and have me be disappointed. There were just so many big names out there that I think I would have gotten behind pretty much any of them because I didn't think that they were going to go like off the board. But I mean, we'll dive into his press conference, but I'm really pumped to what this guy brings. We keep clamoring for a change of culture, right? We want to get back to that old Flyers brand of hockey. I don't think there's anybody more that than John Tortorella. He also is a successful coach. He gets teams to overperform. And if we're going to go anywhere in the next few years, we're going to need to overperform. So, yeah, I mean, with just initial thoughts, I mean, I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. Hoagie, what are your initial thoughts on the Tortorella hire here?
Same. I'm on the same train here. I mean, when the news like kind of broke, what was that, Wednesday night? I was like, all right, let's press the brakes here. Nothing's official. Like, there's still a lot to be hammered out. And then Kevin Weeks doing Kevin Weeks things in the laundry room, breaking news, saying they signed him 4x4. I think it's a great deal. I think he brings that thing that we need in this locker room. And a lot of people are upset. We don't want this guy to be like the face of the franchise. Who cares? At least someone's the face of the franchise other than Claude Giroux over the past 10 years. Like we need a change, and this is our change. This is a new era of Flyers.
A human being is the face of the franchise, not a furry crack mascot.
Yeah.
Like I'm curious too, though. I mean, I know we've heard differing opinions from different people about the face of the franchise, but like anybody next to Gritty, like I mean. And when we talked about it on the last show, Matt Casey and I, like the Flyers struck gold here when it comes to a marketing opportunity, when it comes to a guy like John Tortorella, his personality and just him altogether. Like, how do you not look at that and as a marketing employee, expert, whatever you want to call him, think, oh my God, this just landed right on my lap.
Especially for the city of Philadelphia. It just matches up so well.
And think about what you had to deal with. I mean, I would argue Berube had some of this, like a little bit of that flair. But then you had Hackstall, who, that guy's like watching paint. and then you have AV, who, damn, did he dress like a champ, but like he wasn't giving you anything. And so, I think we're all kind of expecting the fireworks, like day by day by day. I think in that way we're actually going to be a little bit disappointed. Like you just see these clips of Tortorella, but they're over like a 20-year career of him doing that. It's not every single game, but when it happens, we're going to be like, yeah, that's Philly. That's Philly for you,
So do we want to place bets on the first reporter that gets like cursed out or like screamed at by Tortorella?
Carchidi.
It's already happened. Carchidi already got it.
Carchidi, Gelston, he gave kind of a short answer to as well. John brought that up.
Here's the thing, and I guess this leads into the presser portion of it, but like every single reporter, they were on Zoom doing this. Every single reporter was like, "Hi, John. Welcome, John." Like it was cordial. This cheese dick Gelston, who I don't even know who he writes for. Like I think he's AP maybe, like where everyone goes for their sports, the Associated Press, and he's just like he just jumped right in, and you could hear Tortorella laugh. He's like, "Hey, Dan," and you could just like I was picturing that movie where the guy has like 25 different personalities. He's like, which personality about to go full New York Rangers snapping Tortorella on this guy Dan Gelston. That like everybody else on that press conference, I recognized probably 95% of the names except for this guy, and he was the biggest. Like he is the dark horse for getting ridiculed if he even gets into the room again.
I think if he's with the AP, it's not going to be very often that he's covering this team, I'm sure. But regardless, when he does, make sure you've got your TiVo set.
I started laughing in the middle of the press conference. I was like, wow.
No, I mean, it's an exciting time. I mean, again, Casey and I talked about it. I'm excited. John and I think have been talking about Tortorella as a head coach for a long time now.
We talked about him when AV was hired, right? I think he was still in Columbus, but we were like, he's on the hot seat. You
want to say that a little louder for Matt Casey, who didn't believe me?
Not that I didn't believe you. I was just like, I don't remember. I don't remember you being like the hard reporter. If you guys verify, I'm not here to argue with you. I came out and said I want nothing to do with the guy a couple months ago. And like, you know what? I'll eat my words. He's the coach. Like, let's go for it. I also have been like, I've been fed the news snippets of Tortorella over the years, and that's where my perception of him comes. After this press conference, I have a totally different perception, and I'm all for it.
Well, I think too, you got to view it as like it's like consuming a game by only watching the highlights, right? You can't really get what the full picture from just the highlights, and that's all. You throw on YouTube and you search John Tortorella, you're just getting the crazy stuff.
Oh yeah,
right.
You're getting the fun stuff, honestly.
Right.
But I mean, we've alluded to the press conference too. Like, let's jump into that here and talk a little bit about some takeaways from that. And, I think, I'm just going to start, but I think the biggest takeaway is, to me at least, his comments on Kevin Hayes. I really think that he's going to ride Kevin Hayes hard. Like, I think he expects more from him. I think he wants more from him, which we all do, let's be honest. But I think Hayes' personality and Tortorella's personality are going to gel really well, because Hayes seems like the guy that can put in the hard work, that can, do what's asked of him, as long as he's healthy, obviously. But I think that's going to be a really fun relationship to watch this coming up year into the, length of the contract here.
I mean, and you got to remember, too, that Hayes will also have a sounding board in Atkinson who can kind of talk him through Tortorella as well.
Right.
Yeah. And so will all the other guys. I mean, I think Atkinson's going to be the guy that's going to really be a voice in that locker room, as if he wasn't before. But, now, because he's been there with Tortorella before in Columbus, like, guys are going to go to him the same way that we alluded to with Kevin Hayes and Vino. People were going to go to Hayes and, whoever else, I think Yandel too. So there's a voice in there that's going to help guide some of these kids.
I thought we agreed to never mention Yandel again.
I think the thing that I took away, and it's kind of corny, but like, when Tortorella talked about the Flyers, and he kept talking about the logo or the insignia or whatever it was, there was just a sense of pride and like passion to the Flyers brand that I think has been missing for so long, that like, yeah, he just walked into the room, but for him to go in and be like, well, when we played them in 2004, I remember saying to my wife, if I ever got the opportunity to coach there, like, that's what this franchise needs right now. They need a leader who has a track record of driving his players, but also who's already like, this is a team that you should feel pride for playing for.
100%. Absolutely. I mean, a guy that's had success almost every step of the way, coming into a team that he said he's wanted to coach before, and again, you could construe that as, I wanted to coach here, but at the same rate, he mentions like back in 2004, like oddly specific for someone who would just say something like that,
We had a few days to recite it,
Yeah, I can type something up like that too, I'm sure. But no, Hoagie, your biggest takeaway from the press conference?
The
one that was on Zoom, not the one that you were telling Frank
screw
about.
You. Yeah, right. I'm right there with John. The passion that he brings to the table is just like, it's not something we're used to, and I was very excited. It got me ramped up. It gave Casey some wood, apparently. But another big thing that I took away from it was, he believes in Carter Hart. He believes that they gotta give him some freaking help, and I think he'll give Carter Hart some confidence this year and really get him back on this game, because we've said it for the past couple of years with AV, stop dragging this kid through the mud, give him some help, and AV was just like, yeah, see you later. Good luck with this defensive core.
He's gonna write a song about it. Yep.
That is one thing that intrigues me though, like knowing past teams that Tortorella has coached, they've had very good defensive units, and we know for a fact Flyers don't. So I'm really interested to see how that pans out. We've got the draft, we've got free agency, like really anxious to see how the blue line takes shape coming into next year. But topic for another time. Matt Casey, your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys said, and the intensity. It got me psyched up, and I've been like in the absolute. I've been in a pretty dark space, as I think most of us have been since January with the Flyers, and really nothing to look forward to.
Thanksgiving. January.
Yeah, give or take a month.
But I'll go with a different one, which was really his communication and openness, and not only with the interview itself, and yes, that came through with the intensity, but also like him talking about the interview process and Chuck sort of like verifying a lot of that. And I think as you he made no bones that he's like, I've made mistakes. I'm
Right.
not everyone's cup of tea. He kept on saying it's a two-way street with the players. Like, he's going to be tough as shit on them, but they, if they perform, like, he lets off. And so I think, the larger picture that I got, and I hate to, keep going in the past, but AV was a name, and, arguably they're both, very good coaches and very successful coaches. I think what we're going to be getting at Tortorella is the investment that Tortorella has in the people and specifically the players to let them know like where they stand versus going outside and huffing a pack of, export cigarettes.
Drinking his black coffee.
Right. And so I just feel like he's going to bring what AV was lacking, which is the investment in the team itself versus just like, oh, I'm now the head coach. Like, what I say says goes. It's going to be much more of a two-way street.
And to kind of piggyback off that, Casey, what I also got too was there was a lot of reflection and like hints at his willingness to adapt,
Right.
which was something else that AV just never could do.
No.
Right. It was like the Vino way. This was how it was done. And it didn't matter the personnel or anything. This was what was happening. But when Tortorella was talking, like you could just tell there were certain things he was saying, like, I have to grow here. Right. I might need to change this, so that's a sign of a good coach.
One of the things, that he said there, he was like, I'm not a good power play or offensive specialist.
Right.
He's like, I need help with that. And like, that's awesome that you have somebody who is self-aware enough to know that and knows that that's the top priority that he's going to need from assistants and things like that as well. So, I was just really impressed with how well he communicates, how well that, I know people are giving this interview process crap about how long it took, and they brought in a search firm. It's like, yes, it's an executive position. Like, you bring in a search firm. Otherwise, know what you get is the GM's son's college coach. Like, that's what you get. And, that's we just can't have any more misfires like that.
Right.
And so, I think all of us are scratching our heads like, it could have been Tortorella in January. Yeah, it could have been. But you know what? It is what it is now.
Pay two coaches at once. Like, you're still paying AV. He's on the books. Think about that plus what you're paying Tortorella now is what you'd have to pay both of those guys at the same time. Like, which doesn't mean much because it's only a couple months, but like it's something. And I'm sure Dave Scott and his fiscal ways and that blank check.
I actually agree though with waiting until the off season.
I kind of do
like.
too.
I just think, Tortorella would have inherited a sinking ship. Like, it just didn't make any sense to bring him in.
Yeah.
And what do you have? Right. I mean, at that point, you're trying to break one of our multiple 10-game losing streaks, which, like, that's bad enough as it is. And then you're trying to navigate Claude Giroux as a captain who knows he's on his way out. Like, you're trying to, like, navigate all these personalities versus going into the offseason and being like, okay, this is a new team. And from what we've heard behind closed doors is he's already reached out to all the players. He's already done it. He's already asked for many of the leaders to come back in a couple days and come meet.
And it took Vino like a month or something like that to do that?
A month or two to do it when he was hired. And so I think you can just see the investment. And he's traveled around the country and he lives, I think, in Connecticut now. Like, he's not that far away. So he's got stuff to do. He's got to move. He's got a ton of dogs, I think. And so, but he's getting into it right away. No, he's like really into like dog like rescues or something like that. Like, that's his thing.
Him and Provorov are going to get along just fine.
We'll see about
They're
that.
the best friends. They're going to bond over the TikToks, over the dog. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to see it. But, speaking of players, I guess, I'm really interested to see, and I'm sure everybody is, the dynamic between some of the players, some players more than others, obviously, but coaches too. I mean, personnel in terms of, who's he going to bring in, which players are going to gel with his type of coaching style. And I'll kick it to you first, John, but is there a player in particular that you're intrigued, whether it's good or bad, about the relationship, I guess you could call it, between him and Tortorella?
Well, I think there's two that stand out, and I think it is a little bit more on the negative side. I know, shocking, but I am really interested to see how Provorov and Konechny respond, because these are two players that it was like promising track, and then all of a sudden, what the F happened, right? And I'm curious to see if a coach like Tortorella helps them and kind of steers them back in the right direction, or they just keep on sinking.
How about you, Matt Casey?
Yeah, I want to touch on the Provorov one first. I think Provorov has a more than likely chance to do better under Tortorella than not. And the reason I say that is I feel like Provorov is very structured. He wants people to be in the right place at the right time. And I think that is what Tortorella preaches. And so, look, it could go the other way, and I wouldn't be totally shocked. But I think, if you have guys that aren't looking back for breakout passes, like that's an issue. And then like that turns into a Provorov turnover, which turns into a goal in the last minute of every game. And so, I feel like with more structure and more accountability up and down the lineup and just doing basic things like getting better at breakouts and, things like that, I think Provorov might do better. I can't say it for sure.
I'm going to step away for a second here real quick.
Yep.
Kids screaming.
Oh, got it. The other one I'm interested in, TK, by the way, I have no idea. I don't know where he's going to fall.
Right. Well, that's why I'm interested in it.
I'm interested in Ristolainen. I'm very intrigued by that because he obviously has some flaws in his game. Like he has a lot of upside, a lot of flaws in his game. You keep hearing about, Tortorella getting the best out of his players, getting the, squeezing the best. And you keep on hearing about Ristolainen has all this potential. He just has to put it together.
Right.
Could this be it? Could he be the Risto whisperer who finally gets this guy to play like I think he can play and just be a mean son of a bitch, but yet still a point producer?
I'm actually interested, and we'll never find this out, but if there was even an interview conversation, like way deep into things that was like Ristolainen specific, we've committed this much term and money to this guy. Like, where do you see him?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that they had to break down the entire roster and go through. Yeah. Because, you have free agency coming up in 2 weeks. I mean, the draft is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. The 7th, I think. July
7th, yeah. And I think free agency is like right after.
A week later, yeah. And so, Tortorella's, he's got to do his homework. And I think that's the advantage of him probably being in, the quote-unquote breast box for the last year is that he has a much different perspective versus being, tunnel vision in beautiful Columbus, Ohio, dealing with that team for a year. So, I don't know. Hoagie, who do you got?
I mean, I'm going to stick with the defensive core here. I kind of want to see how Sanheim adapts here because the past couple of coaches, they've let Sanheim kind of go out on a leash and play this offensive game, whereas Tortorella is more of a defensive-minded coach. So I wonder if, they're going to reel him in and kind of hone in on his defensive skill. So that's just one guy that I'm kind of on the fence about. And the other one, I keep forgetting he's on the team because he never played this year, is freaking Couturier. He's been such a ghost. He's one of those guys that is like the Giroux era in a way. Like he's still a part of that old regime. So I'm hoping that he kind of comes.
Right.
He's the last one. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm kind of. I mean, you can toss Lawn in there in a way, but of leadership, you have Couturier of that regime. So I'm kind of interested to see if he just steps up and is like buddy with Torts, or if he just kind of gives him a little bit of hard time, or just falls in line. I hope he falls in line because I feel like Couturier will benefit the most out of his style of play and his coaching, because Couturier is kind of the same way. Like he's very structured type of guy. He plays his game and he unfolds the game in a way that other players don't. Like he kind of sees the ice in a completely different way. So I think he's one guy to watch as the season starts to come to fruition.
I'll throw one more in there in the same realm as Couturier.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, go ahead, John.
No, go. I don't think we're going the same way, so you go and then I'll go.
I'm gonna throw Ellis in there as well in the same realm as Couturier, and obviously the two of them have.
Who's that?
Yeah.
The guy that we like.
The NASCAR driver.
The guy who looks like a garden gnome and supposed to be really good, but we haven't seen him yet.
I thought that was like a Gritty's stepbrother mascot thing that they just gave up on.
I was looking at the cat friend, like total side note here. I was looking at one of like the cat friendly sites or whatever it is, and I was just like, we have Ellis for so long. Like we have him for another 6 years. Like he's got to get better. This is not going to be a Chris Pronger. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to retire here. Like he's got to get better.
Right.
But I put he and Couturier in the same realm in two different ways. Number one, they're both very established players. Couturier is a Selke Award winner. Ellis has been on very successful teams in Nashville and done very well, and like is clearly, when healthy, a very, very good defenseman. Where that could butt heads with Tortorella, and what you kind of heard Cam Atkinson say in an interview he did with Jordan Hall and those guys, is like, he may come in and you're just not used to looking at things in a different way, and you're going to butt heads with him, but ultimately he likes the conflict and he thinks it's going to help you grow. Now, on the flip side, what I do think is going to happen, or at least I hope is going to happen, is the two of them realize that they're both coming off season-ending long-term injuries, and they're going to have to work their asses off anyway just to get back to where they were. Right. And so, like, I don't think, what Derek and I talked about on Thursday was, this team has no one on the current roster who should have any sort of ego given how the last 2 years have gone. Now, Couturier and Ellis might fall into them, but, like, I don't see either of them as ego guys anyway. Right. And so I see them as good leaders trying to work their way back, and they know that, they saw a shortened season, and hopefully they're willing to lead the rest of them too.
Yeah, I mean, and I was going to go in a different route. I mean, I look at two young kids who have not reached their potential yet that I think we're all waiting on, and that's Morgan Frost.
Narrow it down.
Well, Morgan Frost and Owen Tippett to me, right?
Yep.
These are first-round draft picks, right, who are supposed to bring some serious offensive skill that just haven't been able to put it together. And, I mean, Owen Tippett, I think that the Flyers are going to give a little bit more patience to, because he was the centerpiece of the Giroux trade. But, like, this has got to be it for Morgan Frost, right? Like, there can't be another chance after this if he's on the roster. But, like, if Tortorella is the guy who can get everything out of players, like, I'm curious to see what he can get with those two.
I forgot about Frost, like, which isn't a good sign. But yeah, I think you're right, man. Sorry, Hoagie, go ahead.
No, I'm on the same page. I forget about Frost. Like last year at this time, he was the main topic of conversation. Is he going to be our 3C? Now, is he even going to make the roster this year? Like,
is he going to be on the roster? Right.
Will he be in the organization this year? Like, I think if they're smart, you trade him at this point. Because
I wouldn't be opposed to a good package deal trade that includes Frost if it improves the roster. Like, I just feel like his production is obtainable in other ways. So,
what's the next topic?
What are we doing next?
Well, so I also included personnel in this that Tortorella is going to have an impact on. I think he'll have an impact on like the training team and stuff like that, and like the medical staff. Because with AV, I felt like we just had so many guys getting rushed back, and I think Tortorella will be like, well, if he's not ready, he's not ready, and he's not going. Like, I think he'll kind of have like that mentality of rest them, and when they're 100%, we'll put them on the ice. So that's where I'm tossing that personnel there.
Well, I also wonder what kind of. I'm kind of curious of what kind of impact he's going to have on Chuck Fletcher.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just see Tortorella as somebody who doesn't keep his mouth shut, and if he has opinions about the roster, I think he's going to let Fletcher know. And I don't mean that. I don't actually necessarily mean it in a negative way, but they just seem like very different personalities where if things were to get rough, I'm curious of what that dynamic would be like.
And I think I think back to the whole interview process thing and like, having heard the amount of time that they all spent together and like the strategy that Chuck used, he was like, come in and pitch us on why you should be the Flyers coach. Like Tortorella has no delusions about what he's getting into from a top to bottom standpoint. I mean, who knows? There's probably always skeletons in the closet, as we've seen, but he understands what he's inheriting. I think the interesting about Tortorella, and again, versus in AV, is that from top to bottom, and Hoagie, I'll include the training staff, the equipment manager, I'm sure the new PR team, because I know that Zach Hill is leaving. Like, everyone from top to bottom is going to be in like a little bit of a different, a different frequency. And it's going to be John Tortorella's frequency. Chuck Fletcher seems like a smart dude. He's not going to be mistaken for Mr. Dynamic from a personality and driving culture. I think Tortorella is that guy. And I go back, a year or so ago, there was a great speech by the coach of UMass. I can't remember the guy's name is Garvey is his nickname, but UMass was a horrible team. Took over, and then like 2 years ago they won the championship, and he like kind of walked through, and he's walked through all the steps that he did to make a team that nobody respected a championship team. And like one of the many things that he talked about was like, we get off the bus at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, or a Sunday morning coming from an away game at like, Clarkson or something, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, the first thing that me and all the assistants do is we pick up bags and we throw them on our shoulders and we're walking. And like, and they see us doing it. There's no egos on the team that are like, oh, I'm an upperclassman, I'm not doing it. That's the way that I see Tortorella running his thing. It's just like, hey, no matter who you are, you got to deliver. So I think it goes top to bottom.
It's like, hey, coach, your turn to clean the toilets.
he said that in the presser, like, we have to have a different attitude come right off the bus on away games. Mm-hmm. We have to be here ready to play, and if you're not, tough luck on you. Like I appreciate. Like, I'm so excited for this kind of like, get on your horse and let's go. Like if you're not, we're leaving you back there. Like tough
let me
luck.
ask you guys this off the cheat a little bit, but how big of a deal do you think it is having Cam Atkinson as the established voice in the locker room who like has been vocal in support of Tortorella and has the trust of the team? Like, do you think that is a huge deal or not?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think it is huge because I think when you look at the acquisitions from last year, right? And we're bringing in all these leaders and all these people who was born in A or C. He was the only one that really panned out. Mm-hmm. He was the only one where it was obvious that guy left it all out on the ice. And he was not afraid of putting these little subtle hints that like he wasn't happy with the overall locker room and how this team performed, right? And I just think that him kind of being able to be the messenger for Tortorella. I mean, messenger might not be the right word, but you know what I mean? Like the guy to kind of, on the ice for Tortorella can really help move this in the right direction. When Couturier or Hayes or anybody, Farabee has a rough moment with Tortorella, Atkinson can go in with a story from a few years ago and it was the same thing. And like, this is what you got to do. And he'll go and, respect you.
Right. Hoagie, you feel the same way?
Yeah, no, I'm on the same boat because I can see like a Farabee coming in, smashing his stick like he did last year, and Tortorella like ripping him a new one. Like, why are you doing that? Do that on the ice. And I can see like an Atkinson coming over to him like, dude, he's right. I love to see the frustration, but let's channel that out onto the ice. So, I think Atkinson is going to be a huge driving force for Tortorella, and like he dropped Tortorella's name in exit interviews. Like he loves to play for him, and he's excited. We've seen it on the socials, on Twitter, on Instagram. Like he's excited. The LFGs, come on, like he's ready to go.
All right, another side question. How much do you think Tortorella would have hated having Jake Voracek on this team. Because I view Voracek as like the laziest back checker on the face of the earth. Like you just saw him coasting half the time, and then he would have like, I don't know.
I even wonder what he'd be like with Giroux, to be honest with you.
Right.
Yeah.
But one thing that again, this is kind of off the beaten path here too, but when AV was hired, when it was first, like Chuck Fletcher's first go around with the Flyers, he brought in AV, there was Kevin Hayes, and then it was like forming this team around connections with Kevin Hayes and AV, right? I really hope that we don't all of a sudden do the Tortorella Atkinson connection train, and it's just like we're bringing in old Blue Jackets.
Well, they've already
Boone
started.
Jenner shows up, like,
that's not a deep pot that we want to dip into.
Right. Just enough with these personal connection things, man. I don't need any of that.
Well, they did it in the press conference with the whole Boston thing. I'm like,
oh, he was like, shut
dead.
up.
I was like, he's like, that makes no sense. Like,
right.
Just like, shut up.
So we had on here as well in terms of assistant coaches, which is obviously the next step in this whole, soiree.
Right.
But, what do you guys think that, do you have any names in mind? Do you have any attributes in mind? Like, what are you guys thinking from an assistant coach standpoint?
Well, two things come to mind. I think the first one's obvious: power play.
Yep.
Right. I mean, John Tortorella, Chuck Fletcher, they all say Tortorella's weakness is pretty much the power play.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd also...
It's our weakness too. What a coincidence.
I know. Hooray. But I think the other thing that I'm looking for is a Mike Yo type assistant. One that can like bond with the players in a way that like you're going to need that with this guy every once in a while. Somebody who I think, can connect with the players in a way that maybe Tortorella can't in certain times.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I disagree.
Dude,
I think you need someone harder than Tortorella so that the players are more susceptible to bonding with him.
where did you come from, first of all?
Hi, I'm Derek, and I have a child that doesn't like to go to sleep when we put him in his crib. I'm sure most of you, aside from Hoagie, can relate.
Are you being serious, though, with that take that you just said about an assistant harder than Tortorella?
You want Tortorella be the nice cop?
Yeah. Let Tortorella be the nice cop.
All right,
not bringing Mike Babcock.
Oh my gosh.
Listen, let's not go that far.
Well, what's
He kind of did.
in between that?
Like a Quenville? I don't know.
Oh,
That's a joke. That's a joke. 100% a joke. No, I'm just saying, I think it'd be an interesting dynamic because everybody hears Tortorella's such a jerk, Tortorella's such an asshole, Why not hire somebody that, the players view like that and then think Tortorella's the nice guy?
You think Terrian's got another job?
Shut up.
Stop it.
Shut your mouth.
That was going to be my line.
Gotta be quicker than that.
No, I'm with you, John. I think they need, Tortorella can fly off the handle every now and then, and like that's where the passion of the team's going to come from. But you are going to need somebody to be like what he like. Herb Brooks is the locker room and tosses the water. You need the Craig Patrick in there to be like, okay, here's some X's and O's on how to actually, adapt this into, something obtainable. So I think like you do need the power play. Absolutely. Then you need like the stability in there. And I don't know I personally don't think it's in house.
No.
I don't think we have anyone.
Oh,
in
you
there.
mean Lappy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, shut your mouth.
I'm wondering, the one player I would love to see back here, or the one coach I'd love to see back here would be Recchi. I mean, I know he hasn't had like huge success in Jersey, but he did pretty well in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And like, is somebody like that who isn't as far removed from the game, but like, still has the credibility in there. Like, is he somebody that they look at? No idea. I've not heard one peep about that, but that's the one name I'd like to see.
Whoever they bring in needs to turn things around. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The past, I think, 3 years now, all special teams, not just penalty kill, not just power play, both units have sucked. Flat out sucked. Underperformed, call it what you will.
Entire round of play has sucked.
It's
not just for special teams.
You're right. But special teams, I mean, in Tortorella said it and said as much in his interview or his press conference. I'm sorry. It needs to be better, and it should be a focal point. I mean, if you think about what the power play was 12-13% this year, efficiently speaking, I should say. That's horrendous.
That's not very efficient. Yeah.
No, it's not. It is absolutely
Typically don't hear
not.
13% and efficient in the same
Now,
sentence.
Do they have the personnel? Yeah. But,
Well,
I mean, put a system in place that's going to work.
So here's the thing, and you unknowingly brought up an interesting point that I'd actually like to talk about a little bit more, because I've been listening to tons of talk about Tortorella, right, and his track record, and it's like, well, this guy, once he gets to the postseason, can't get out of the first round, and will that mesh with the Flyers? All of this stuff about like team performance and like track record and things like that, as far as how far the team can go. Do people forget that the coach does not play the game?
They must.
Like, I feel like
they
they're
also
so
swept Tampa Bay in a year that they had no business doing so.
right, but like, you know what I mean? I just feel like when we're having these coaching conversations, I think we put way too much stock into the coach when it comes to like the on ice play. Like, part of the problem with the power play is we don't have people who can score goals.
Yeah.
Right? When you don't have a team with goal scorers, how are you going to score on a power play?
But that's why.
We've also been
Because you've
running
got
the same
players that
system
can't do
for
their
the past
job.
5.
Right, but the coach is only going to do so much, and I agree they need somebody in there to pay attention to the power play. But guess what? Unless Owen Tippett starts to find the back of the net, or they go out and grab somebody, it's still gonna suck.
Oh yeah.
JVR. We still got JVR for one more year.
Oh, stop
I'm
it.
right in front, baby. Fire away.
Wing
Listen,
at him.
our power play is going to be different this year because we don't have Giroux on the boards lining up for that one time that has been there for what 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I don't even know anymore. Everybody read that play. They just wanted to get to G so he could rip that shot, kind of like an Ovi-esque. Like, we need
An
a different
Ovi
system.
light.
Overnight.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So
Still work.
whoever you bring in for a power play, you need someone that's on just bring in a different system that nobody's going to know.
Be creative. Like,
That
how
nobody's
long
gonna
have
know?
we dealt with the
Just
goddamn
like this secret
slingshot?
guy who was just sitting in a cave somewhere waiting to be found, who's got the perfect solution to the power play.
It's going to be different. Like, everybody's just used to that pass where they can just put a stick in there and just go.
Michael,
knows
your father-in-law, that's your father-in-law,
Yep.
correct?
Correct.
Fantastic point. No
Yeah.
imagination on
Right.
the power play.
Well, I mean, this team lacked that
They
imagination.
need to be
everywhere.
creative because we've saw. I mean, God damn it, the drop pass on the power play, like that can die the ugliest death in the world, and it wouldn't be ugly enough.
Right.
Like, it needs to
Drop
go
pass.
away, and we need some creativity. We need
And
something
yet
that's
Colorado
going to
can play
deceive
every,
these teams.
every night.
Colorado has
What
the
I-
skill to pull it off.
What I heard for the last couple of years, and playing off of Hoagie's Giroux point, is that Giroux basically dictated what the power play was going to be, even to the coaches. And you think about the coaching carousel that we've had, between Hackstall. I forget who the interim was after Hackstall.
Gordon.
Scott
Gordon.
Gordon.
Yeah,
Gordon.
Yeah.
Scott
Then
Gordon.
AB. Then Yo. Giroux just said, no, we're going to do, this is how the power play is going to run. I'm going to be on the left board, and, that's how it's going to be. The moment he was gone, you were like, okay, you have these other players that are in there. And
Right.
granted, it was, dummy minutes at that point in the season. But, I think you have a couple guys out there with shots. You have younger guys like Tippett. If Allison can ever stay healthy, he's got a decent shot. Like, you have these guys that are out there, but you're right. We still need, this team inherently still just lacks the top end echelon talent to really make a huge impact on the power play. But hell, better coaching can't hurt. That's
For sure.
It's all going to change when they draft Connor Bedard next year.
Stop it.
How nice that would be. But no, so I missed a ton of this, and I apologize that my child doesn't like to go to bed. But in terms of assistance here, is there anything else we want to touch on regarding, who we think Tortorella should bring in or what type of coach we're looking for?
I don't think so.
Nope.
What do you think a timeline is? I mean, do they do this before the draft, or
Have to.
I mean, they have to do before free agency, right?
I think
Before free
before the
agency.
draft. I think before the draft.
That
I don't
quick?
draft as much as free agency, but although there's trades happening at the draft too, so like
Right.
I think like
Yeah.
I also just listened to the interview with Chuck Fletcher with Martinez, and I think he said that he wanted it done before the draft. So
Yeah. It would make sense, but I think, if they can't get it done before the draft, absolutely free agency. Like,
right.
not as crucial having assistants in roles as a head coach, but still you want them in place.
right because
Yeah.
especially if you're going after a free agent,
Right.
and
That's
you're
a
like
selling.
that's a
Mhm.
selling point. You're like, oh yeah, you're a great scorer. Come to the second to last place team in the league, and
We're searching caves for that guy who's got that new power play nobody's used. Once we find them.
Stop it, John.
Oh boy, I must have missed a lot. I'm sorry.
He uses the same slate that Hoagie does to write down.
You're damn straight. I'll go find them myself.
So he's just got a room stacked with hammer
present
chisel
to you
slates from the rundowns.
perfect power play.
The Moses of Pod Street Bullies. Was it Moses that did the 10 Commandments? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, there we go. I learned something in church. We were about 46 minutes in. There was one more thing we can quick hit on. Nothing crazy, but there's some rumors swirling around about one, and we'll get into this here first because it pertains mainly to the Flyers. TK, Travis Konechny, being potentially shopped around the league. Nothing imminent, obviously, but, put two and two together, this is kind of making more sense than anything because, Jesus, how long have we been talking about Konechny being on the board in terms of available for a trade? So, Hoagie, because you've done such a great job being essentially our producer, I'm going to go to you first here. What are your thoughts on a potential Travis Konechny deal?
I'm not opposed, but it's got to be for the right deal. I mean, I don't want to just give up Konechny for picks. I kind of want to get a player back in turn. So, I mean, I also kind of want to see him play under Torts. I think he might have something there that Torts might unlock for him. So, I mean, I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not going to be upset like all the TK stands out there, but I think it might be better. We might be better off in the long run.
John?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be all for it. I think that there's actually really only a few scenarios where I'd say no at this point. I think that Travis Konechny has done enough to this point where I'm like, I've kind of seen what I need to see. Where if it was for picks with this idea of like we're clearing cap space, I mean, and I'm talking like a first round pick or a second round pick with a third or whatever, not like a fourth or a fifth. But if we're able to get a few picks, clear cap space, and then utilize that money, to fill the roster, like I'd be all for that. If it's a part of a package for DeBrincat, I'd be all for that. Like, I think that I can convince myself in multiple different ways why trading him would be a good idea.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think we all could, but Matt Casey, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to see him play under Torts. I do, and I do think he played better last year. But at the same time, we're going to have to give up something to get something better, and whether that's this season or next season, like people aren't just going to do us favors.
Right.
And so I think like he is, still a good player. If he has another down year, his value plummets.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so if the deal is right, I kind of feel the same way about Frost too. If the deal is right, like I'm not opposed to it at all.
Now, it's at least rumored that Chicago is looking at an early first round pick, top prospect, and a young rostered player. So in Flyers land here, what we're essentially looking at would be a deal probably close to something where 5th overall might be included. Top prospect like Cam York. I don't know if you'd want to I don't know if Tyson Forrester qualifies for that or not, and then a young forward, Konechny, would fit the bill. Is that a deal that you're interested in, John?
Sorry, we're talking DeBrincat now, right?
Yeah, DeBrincat for a first, Cam York, Travis Konechny.
I mean, I think like the safe thing for me to say would be no, right? But how often do you get a 40 goal scorer, right?
Right.
Like
True.
you get the best player or the best piece of that trade. And I think that that's how the Flyers would have to look at it, right? Yes, 5th overall pick. It's hot. It's a high draft pick, but this is not as deep of a draft. These are not players that are going to be NHL ready anytime soon.
Mhm.
Cam York, I really don't want to get rid of.
I don't think we can, man. I don't think we can get rid of
Our
York.
defensive depth is pretty scarce.
Right.
God forbid. What if a certain somebody doesn't play again this year? Like, what the hell are we gonna do?
And the money wouldn't work either. Like,
Yeah.
You're talking about Keith Yandel, right, Casey?
yeah. Bring back Yandel. Get McDonald. We'll bring you back the All-Star dud team.
I have a question though.
Run
So
it again
let's say it's the 5th overall pick, a lesser prospect. So maybe not a York, but maybe like a Frost, but Farabee instead of Konechny.
It's intriguing.
That's
The
tough.
Chicago.
Oh, for sure.
It's very intriguing.
Again, are you still getting the best player? Because you are.
Oh, of course. Yes, DeBrincat's better than Farabee. And maybe it's just me being a homer, but like I have a tough time partnering with a guy like Farabee because I think he's a solid building block for the foundation of this team moving forward.
Agreed.
Not that DeBrincat couldn't be.
Right.
But what scares me even more, and a point I wanted to get to, is the fact that DeBrincat has 1 year left on a deal. There's no certainty as to whether he's going to re-sign because he can come here, the Flyers suck. He doesn't want to be anywhere near this
UFA?
team. I think he's actually an RFA. Yeah.
It's still going to be
It's going to be a
big
contract. Yeah.
I mean, he's going to, even as an RFA, like he'll be like, I don't want to play here, trade my rights. Like, and I can't blame him if the Flyers play like they did last year.
Right.
It's a very risky proposition. But your first question, back to that, it's going to suck. But, man, you get a 40 goal scorer that could potentially do that here. I can't say no.
Right. No.
Anybody else? Any differing opinions? Anybody want to sit here and tell me they love Joel Farabee with all their heart?
I just don't think the Flyers are in a position to do this yet. Like,
Right.
I don't think they're in a position to commit a lot of assets to one player, whether it's in a large trade or a lot of money, talking like Goudreau. This team is just so far away. We need to see what Tortorella brings to this team, where we can plug in the little holes, and then swing big when it makes a little bit more sense. This just swinging big to me right now brings more risk than it does reward.
See, that's where I'm kind of on the fence about, is because we talked about blank check season, with Chuck said it, Dave Scott said it, blank check. I don't think we swung big on Tortorella. I think they're still looking to swing big in free agency or trade, what have you.
But there's a
But it's
salary cap.
With this.
Right.
I understand, but
It's on
I still think that they kind of want to go for a home run to kind of just improve this roster like we did last year, which didn't help.
But
I
what's
think
that home run going to be?
They want to make that splash.
Like, is it going to be a home run by our standards where they go out and get a DeBrincat, or is it going to be a home run by Chuck and Dave's account and be like a let's sign Nazem Kadri because we think he's going to fit Tortorella? That's what scares me. I think the most is that.
My standard is going out and get a Johnny Hockey, but I know it's not going to happen. Like we don't have the blank check to write for Johnny Hockey or someone along those lines.
There's a lot of moves to be made to make up that much cap space.
Right.
Right.
And at what point are you just debilitate? I mean, the one thing we're pretty good at is like, bottom two line forwards and with a couple second liners in there. But like, at some point if you're putting all these assets into a winger who's on for 15 minutes a game or 17 minutes a game, whatever it is, like that's not going to help the team overall if you completely emptied the cupboard on everything else. And I'm not saying like we can't move on from a Farabee or a York or a Frost or, you know, whatever it may be. I think depleting that entire, like those are the guys who need to be pushed in order for us to actually be successful, because they're manageable contracts and, you know, they still
and
have
they're the future.
Right.
Like Farabee,
So
I think, isn't he just a shade younger than DeBrincat too?
It's 23.
Yeah, DeBrincat's I think 24 or something like that. So either the same age or differing by a year. But like, obviously, quality of player. You're looking at DeBrincat here, up here, and Farabee a little further behind.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm looking at. I mean, it's easier said than done. I'd rather get like a good power forward that is a first or second line type guy that can sort of help pave the way a little bit for Couturier. And I don't think it's him, but like in my mind, I'm thinking of a player similar to like an Evander Kane or something like that, who like is nasty as shit, but actually has some skills. I don't know if I want to deal with that nightmare, but you know, it's somebody like that who can come in and you know, Evander Kane in his prime was pretty damn nasty.
Right.
If you can assure me that we're not going to deal with the off ice stuff as much as his past clubs, I'm not against it. Like I kind of hate saying that, but like, dude, if you're going to put up a hat trick in the playoffs, man, and you're going to score goals for us and help pave the way for Couturier.
I mean, how genius did Carolina look for picking up D'Angelo this year?
D'Angelo.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. Even I mean, to an extent with Edmonton. I mean, look at the output they got from Kane in the playoffs. Like they looked good for that, and they were in the Western Conference Finals.
Well, I think for me, I think that like scoring winger is a luxury at this point. Like center scares the crap out of me, right? Ideally, I'd love to find a center where we could make Hayes the 3C. It's expensive 3C, but I'd love for him to limit his role. But if not, like we've got to find a legitimate third line center. And you know, I think if you can get that and have a healthy Ellis, like this team looks a lot different with a healthy Couturier, a healthy Ellis, and then a legitimate 3C.
Right.
You know,
I mean, do you think a 2C is totally out of the realm? Like we're assuming that Couturier is 1C, but are you assuming, you know, are there 2Cs out there, or is that just going to be too expensive, too rich for our blood here?
I mean, you'd have to make sure you can clear JVR, and like, and how much money are you like? You can't match Hayes. You can't match Hayes money. You know what I mean? Like, so ideally, I'd love to find a 2C. I just don't know how that would work.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's some chess to be played there. I mean, that's going to be. I'll be impressed if they can pull off a move, something similar like a Johnny Gaudreau. I mean, I know it's a crapshoot at this point, but I would be very impressed if something like that would occur.
Yeah, but plenty to talk about over the next few weeks.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be back with much more regularity here than we were the past 3 weeks here. But plenty to talk about. Drafts coming up here at the beginning of July. We're going to have we're going to look into some players that we think are going to gel with Tortorella and some that we don't think will gel with Tortorella. That should be a fun conversation. That'll be coming up in the next couple weeks. Otherwise, John or Hoagie or Casey, I can't even remember what our thing is here at the end of the show. It's been so long.
It's the dad joke.
It's the dad joke.
Oh no!
What did the Pink Panther say when he stepped on an ant?
Oh, really? Like, what are we, kindergarten? Is today? Like, of course.
Suck it, Hoagie.
Busted.
Come on.
That was what you went with, man?
I had to get it off the list. Screw you guys.
Next time, we can like, where does Santa Claus vote?
The North Pole.
All right.
He's like, damn it. All right, that one's off the slab.
How is your long-distance relationship going? So far, so good.
All right.
All right, guys, I gotta go.
Yeah. All right.
Stanley Cup
All right,
files
folks.
are on.
All right, Casey, let them know where they're going to find you.
Pod Street Casey on Twitter.
Hoagie.
Pod Street Hoax.
John.
You can find this podcast on all your various podcast listening receptacles, included but not limited to Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts. It's been a while. I don't remember what we're even on.
We can
YouTube,
tell.
Stitcher.
Stitcher.
Pocket Cast.
Thank you, Pocket Cast,
Yeah.
and all the other ones. Amazon Music, we're there too. And if you're looking for a brand new place, just Google us.
All right. Wonderful. You can find me on Twitter, Pod Street Bob. All of us on Twitter, Pod ST Bullies. Check out our affiliates also. Flyers High and Wide are on there at Flyers HW. 5 Minute Major podcast is on there at 5 Min Major Pod. And folks, until next week, we'll see how it all unfolds.
Bye now.
Bye now.